Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Walton. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, April 5th, 2017. Good news. I have to get right to it this time. I got to tell you, big happenings in the White House yesterday, and I guess we missed it. I don't know how we all missed this story, but it's just the scoop of a lifetime. The Hill has got it. Thank goodness for Tim Devaney at the Hill. He knows, while you don't, that the Trump administration has removed endangered species protections for parrots. Thank God. And I gotta tell you something, I have been a closet Trump fan all this time, but now I can finally come out. Parrots, you little bastards, we're finally coming for you. Make America great again, I say. Of course, these parrots were in Australia, which we hate, and is a terrible ally, and might as well be ISIS, as you know, from the president's phone call with their prime minister. Parrots, those colorful birds famous for repeating what you say. That is to say, the colorful birds famous for repeating what you say. Rock? Oh, I want a cracker. This is a parrot, actually, giving you the news today. They're facing fewer protections from the Trump administration. I didn't even know that sentence makes any sense. They're facing fewer protections. They'll get fewer protections. They're facing greater dangers, I guess, but okay, the Fish and Wildlife Service announced Tuesday that it is removing the turquoise parrot, that son of a bitch, and the scarlet-chested MFer parrot, I don't think that's actually the name of it, the scarlet-chested parrot, from the endangered species list. The lazy loafers have been hiding there for I don't know how long. These two parrots are found in Australia, which, as you know, sucks and we should be nuking, if you're a fan of the president. Both species were listed as endangered in the 70s, when everybody was smoking pot and thinking they were endangered. This was after their populations declined, probably because of the pot. At one point, the scarlet-chested parrot joined ISIS. Was thought to have gone extinct, and as a result, or rather, it was thought to have gone extinct as a result of no sightings, the agency said. That's usually a pretty good indication of extinction. But it was, like I said, they had gone underground and joined, well, okay, it's the 1970s. If it was the late 1970s, they had joined the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, fighting with Osama bin Laden, then, of course, a great freedom fighter fighting the Soviets, who are now the Russians who we love. Are you beginning to connect the dots here, people? Wow. Well, their populations have since recovered. Those shifty little welfare queens that they are. The agency estimates that there are more than 10,000 scarlet-chested parrots and 20,000 turquoise parrots living in Australia without visas, I might add. This is really incredible. I would say this. I mean, I guess I'd be okay with, although I'm sure you could talk me into it because I'm such a liberal. But if you wanted to say the Fish and Wildlife Service is not going to spend money estimating how many scarlet-chested parrots live in Australia anymore. I mean, I'm sure it's an important indicator of global warming trends or something, but okay, you know, the Australians could tell us how many they have, I guess, if they can see them, if they could move the corks on strings out of the way of the brims of their hats for just 1 second and just work instead of living on our welfare for once and count the damn parrots. I'm trying out for the other side. I thought I could get paid if I turned Republican. Species experts now widely characterize populations of the scarlet-chested parrot and the turquoise parrot as stable, not necessarily mentally stable, but the population sizes are stable, with potential increases noted for the turquoise parrot in some areas, the agency wrote in the Federal Register. Now, I know, and you know, that turquoise parrots have been taking American coal mining jobs for decades. So I'm not really even sure why we're celebrating this, but it's huge, it's important. Thank God we finally have a president with the spine to do this. This was something, I mean, if this doesn't get to the heart of white working class economic anxiety and class resentment, I don't know if anything will. And if you don't get it, you're a coastal elite and you're hopeless. Let's Let's have a nuclear war. Okay, Greg Dworkin joins us today on a brand new microphone, which sounds terrific so far. How's it going, Greg? Uh-oh. Here's the answer.
How does it sound?
Okay, now it sounds pretty good. Let me hear that again.
Okay, hi, good morning. This is Greg Dworkin speaking with my friend Kagro in the morning with my brand new microphone that I'm showing off. One of the things about it is you have to figure out that you have to turn the mute button off in order to actually talk.
That's true. There's a little blinking button, and sometimes it's not facing you.
Yeah, and you don't want it to blink because It's not facing you.
But it sounds pretty good to me, and there's no static or anything. And I've started shows where I'm like, this doesn't sound right to me, and then I hit the button. Oh, look at that. Well, now it sounds right, except I forget what I said.
Yeah, exactly. So I've got 4/5 of the setup here.
Okay.
I've got the mic sitting on the desk in front of me, which is very cool, and I've got a boom, which I figured out finally how to attach to the desk, which is also very cool.
Very good.
The only thing.
Yes.
I need one more piece in order to attach the microphone to the boom, but that's coming this afternoon, so I should be able to have that for tomorrow.
All right. Well, it literally sounds good. It actually does. So that's
good. But it does sound better?
It does. I think so. I hope everyone will enjoy it. I mean, you're not here in the room. Everybody knows that. We're still dependent on Skype, but we're feeding them the best
David
possible.
Pop-Tarts. He'll eat it himself. I will not touch them.
It's the best possible sound delivery I think we can do. I know, the headset microphones, they work, but, there's a little bit of a hollow sound to them, and I'm hopeful that we can eliminate it with this. It was never a problem.
Well, after 6 or 7 years, I thought maybe we'd get around to doing this.
Yes. Well, now we sound natural and I don't know. Well, it's almost like someone has removed our endangered species protection.
Indeed. So let's go back to Trump country and look a little bit about what's happening. This is in the Central Valley in California.
Any parrots?
No animals.
Oh.
But we do have billboards, so that's kind of interesting.
Okay, yes.
It turns out this is a story in the San Francisco Chronicle, which I thought was kind of interesting. And the title is, "For Struggling Kern County, Trump Means Hope and Change." And this is agricultural places. And it's red state California. So you would expect to find a lot of Trump voters here. That's not surprising. Mm-hmm. One of them says, "We voted for McCain. We voted for Romney, but we weren't happy with it. We didn't have the faith in them we do in Trump." So he's got that emotional connection with Republicans. We get that.
It's the parrots.
But one of the interesting things is that there's issues here, and they continue to roil the country and this particular area. For example, the article goes on to say, not everybody in the Central Valley is a Trump fan. All around Kern County are signs and electronic billboards warning of the potential cost of the changes in Medicaid, known in California as Medi-Cal. The president and congressional Republicans have pushed as part of their failed for now effort to replace the Affordable Care Act. We'll talk about that a little bit.
Mm-hmm, yes.
That's one of the big stories. Posted along Highway 99 and in some of Bakersfield's poorest areas, the signs focus in California's healthcare program for low-income people, which would have suffered a significant funding cut under the GOP plan. And that includes a lot of Republicans in this Republican area. "Let's put Kern County first. Medi-Cal cuts equal 4,000 jobs lost," says one sign. Others say things like 51% of Merced County residents have Medi-Cal, 45% of Madera County covered by Medi-Cal, 50% Fresno County covered by Medi-Cal, 55% Tulare County residents have Medi-Cal. "We're trying to remind people what's at stake," said Anthony Wright, executive director of Health Access California, the consumer advocacy group behind the campaign. "We want to tell people that even if you're not on Medi-Cal, it's a critical part of the healthcare system in your community." And that's part of the whole message here. You really have to be in this together in order to get anywhere. You can't just say, "Oh, well, I'm single and I'm young and I'm not sick, and therefore I don't want to pay for a mail. I don't want to pay for pregnancy services. I don't want to pay for old people's, Nexium and all the other stuff you would see if you happen to turn on the evening news, because it's all the old people commercials for medications, but I don't watch old people news, so I don't even see those things. I don't want to pay for any of that stuff. I'm healthy. I want to be able to pay $10 a year for my health insurance that I don't really need,
Right.
because I never use it because I'm healthy, and screw everybody else. And that's just not how it works. In fact, Paul Ryan, of all people, doesn't understand this and thinks it's a mortal sin. It's somehow a moral issue that healthy people pay for sick people.
Oh.
But see, the whole point of insurance is you have to take a large group of people in order to defray the cost. Otherwise, what happens is you may as well not have insurance and just have sick people pay for themselves.
Right.
The trouble is nobody can afford to do that. That's why we're in this situation in the first place.
Yeah, that's this layaway plan.
Yeah,
not
it's a layaway plan. But some of the very basics of what's going on here get forgotten because Obamacare, because Obama, because, you know, we hate Obama because Obama, you know, and the whole thing just gets to be so dumb. And for that reason, because people generally understand that you need insurance, all of the HCA, that is to say the Obamacare repeal and replace plans, have failed and is currently failing even in its new iteration because Republicans in the House can't even agree on these basics. The Freedom Caucus thinks that any government involvement whatsoever with health care is wrong. Therefore, all essential conditions should be eliminated. Pre-existing conditions should be eliminated. And basically, the insurance should be as cheap as possible in order so that it doesn't do anything. And by the way, make it so that the insurance companies are allowed to charge sick people really tons of money, because the Freedom Caucus represents corporations. It doesn't really represent people. And they're just, you know, getting more and more blatant about it. If it's good for the insurance companies, it's good for them. And, you know, screw their constituents, because that's not really what matters.
Yeah. Well, I think, look, in real life, they would find out very quickly that none of that works. But luckily, they're protected from their idiocy, for the most part, by their inability to pass this to date.
Right, but they're going to find out pretty soon, because then we have recess. And when we have recess, they have to go home and speak to their constituents.
I don't want to pay for that.
Even if they try not to, the constituents will find them.
I also don't want to pay for them not speaking to them, though. I don't know. I'm amazed by this whole thread of thinking, the idea of, well, I don't want to pay for X, Y, Z. And like, how do they think? I don't know. I mean, you're right. It's just a basic misunderstanding of how insurance works in general. But I don't know. I'm stunned by it afresh every time I see it, because it's so basic. I don't know. I mean, why don't we should, you know what? I got an idea. I'm going to save everybody some money. I'm going to pass a law making illness illegal.
Yep.
Done.
Done. That way it's not an issue. You know, the funny thing is that the media spends a lot of time talking to Trump voters in Trump territory. And I only think it's interesting when they find the ones who decide that they don't like Trump, because the rest of it is like, you know, dog bites man. The man bite dog story is the one that's interesting, which is I changed my mind on Trump.
Right.
And they don't do enough of that. But when it comes to Congress, they also spend way too much time talking to the Freedom Caucus, and they don't talk enough to the Charlie Dents of the world. But there's a reason for that, and that is that the so-called moderates, which is to say the very conservative Republicans who happen to be to the left of the Freedom Caucus, otherwise known as moderates, don't want to talk to the press. They don't want to tell the press that, listen, there's more moderates than there are Freedom Caucus people. There are an equal number who sunk the first iteration of the repeal and replace plan, and anything whatsoever that makes the Freedom Caucus happier about the bill is going to make moderates less happy about the bill, and they will desert, and it won't pass. And that's why Paul Ryan is not in the mix right now in terms of the sides, quote unquote, talking to each other. They're really not. Mike Pence went to the House, talked to the Freedom Caucus, and said, how about if we make you some really, really, really ridiculously terrible policy conservative suggestions for you? Would you consider voting for the bill? And they said, sure, we'll consider it. They haven't seen bill language, so they don't really know what's in it, so they haven't committed. And the very act of doing that is what's being reported in the press as a revival of the new health care bill, which it really isn't, because there still isn't any agreement on the House with enough votes to get it passed.
Okay, well, that's semi-good news. I'll take it. I know they scared everybody at the beginning of the week with the idea that we're bringing it back, we're totally serious. But yeah, it was very quickly reported that not only was there not much behind the new initiative, but it wasn't getting very much support and was kind of falling apart as people went to press.
Well, that story, just like the Susan Rice story,
yes,
it's all intended to be thrown out there so that you stop talking about the fact that Trump and Russia are still the big issue of the day, that Carter Page met with a Russian spy, that the investigation of a sitting president in regard to ties to a foreign power influencing an election is still ongoing, that Democratic members of the Intelligence Committee in the House are suggesting that there are some Republicans with some associations to Trump who are going to wind up with criminal charges based on this. That came out yesterday, without being specific. But you got to think Flynn and Manafort. And by the way, while all of this is going on, new polling comes out, and between Gallup and Quinnipiac, I have a chart here, which is right at the top of the pundit round of my last piece that I sent you over in Skype. And this actually comes from the New York Times, rounding everything up. Trump's net approval rating in the first 100 days is just terrible. It compares him to all other presidents since Eisenhower. And Trump is the only one that's underwater. All the other ones are positive. And Trump right now is at a low of minus 19. That is to say, job approval negatives, which are minused from positives. So he's at minus 19, the only president who's ever been negative. He started the year negative, and he's just gone down since.
Now this poll
I think
is pre-Parrot.
38 in the Gallup right now, but basically he's an unpopular president who's trying to push an unpopular agenda. And that's one of the reasons why things have fallen apart.
That's too bad for him.
It is.
Yeah, this poll, though, we should know for the record, it is pre-Parrot. So there's chance for a Parrot bounce, a dead Parrot bounce.
This is true.
So this could come back. And also, I mean, are there crosstabs on how many of them were scarlet-chested?
Not clear yet at this particular point in time. And of course, you know, with all these polls, you really have to go into the crosstabs and make sure you're not accidentally picking up a cardinal.
Right.
Know?
I mean, scarlet-chested, what do they know? They got to make sure there should be some kind of a screen. That's the special sauce. Armando probably will want to talk about that.
Yeah. So here's the plumb line. This is Greg Sargent from April 3rd, pointing out the obvious that is always worth repeating. Why is Trump flailing? Because Americans hate his agenda and it's based on lies. I thought that was a pretty good headline. And that's the actual
Good night,
headline.
everybody. We're done.
Okay? I mean, you don't even have to
great.
read the story. You get it from the headline. Sometimes, you know, it's...
Keep that in mind every time we complain about headlines that occasionally, I don't know whether Greg Sargent has control of his headlines because he's a blog.
He does not.
Oh.
But still, it's a great headline.
Well, I want to know who those people are. I would like to get some brand names, and there should be, you know, free agent, all-star headline writers that we can appreciate.
Well, this is a good one. So he writes, you know, there's this and there's that, and it's not congressional Republicans, and it's not Trump's penchant for disruption and chaos. It's that the overarching reason for Trump's travails, as his campaign promises are getting translated into concrete policy specifics, Americans are recoiling from the results. What's more, the process is unmasking the disconcerting levels of dishonesty, honesty, bad faith, and lack of concern for detail and procedure that are rotting away at the core of his agenda and approach to governing, all of which is plainly working against him. So I think that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. No additional comment, which is the opposite of the point of the show, but it's a good piece.
I thought it was a very good piece.
Well, the bottom line is he sucks and he can't do anything.
Right.
Oh.
I'm going to turn to the pundit roundup now and just mention the new Quinnipiac poll, which I think is also worth looking at.
All right, let's see. Q poll.
Quinnipiac.
Yes,
American
they are.
voters give President Donald Trump a negative 35 to 57% job approval. This just came out yesterday. With negative approval among men and white voters, leaving him below former President Barack Obama's worst approval rating, a negative 38.57 in 2013. According to a Quinnipiac University national poll released today, why would you think that Obama's worst rating is something, as opposed to his best rating, that should be compared to? Because Trump does it. So you might as well get it out there that even at his worst, you're worse than Obama. All right? I hope you heard that, Donald, because it's as important as people reminding you how small your hands are.
Fake
so
news.
According to the Quinnipiac University national poll released, it's down from 37.56, which is what it was at the end of March.
Wow. I mean, all right, so fake news, as he would doubtless tell you.
Right? Men disapprove 51 to 39. And white voters disapprove 48 to 43. Now, Will Jordan took a look at Quinnipiac polls and put together a chart there, which I have up on the Pundit Roundup, showing that whereas whites with a college degree went from, let's do right after inauguration, 25 of January, whites with a college degree had Trump at a negative 16. Now they're at a negative 22.
Oh.
Whites with no college degree went from a plus 22 to a plus 12. So he's lost 10 points with whites with no college degree. And he's lost 6 points with whites with a college degree. Again, that's the group of people, to me, that are targets of any discussion about Trump. The ones who still support him at this particular point in time after everything he's done, don't even bother talking to them. But there are others. It's not, that nothing has changed. Many other polls are showing that, relatively speaking, let's take this one just for example, because it's right here, Republicans approve of Trump 79 to 14. But that 79 is down from some polls showing 90%. So that's a significant drop, even though, tribally speaking, Republicans will still support him. So if he has any kind of support erode from Republicans, he's doomed because, that's the only thing holding him up. Everybody else already hates him.
Well, we have to work on that last group.
We do. Young Americans, by the way, new poll from the Associated Press, generally feel the federal government should be responsible for ensuring people have health insurance, going back to that particular issue. And the older you are, the more you tend to be a Trump supporter. The younger you are, you scratch your head and say, I don't understand what the heck is going on here. Why isn't the government just, picking stuff up and doing things the way that they're supposed to? And that's an awfully good point. This is a Gen Forward poll. They don't like the idea that all Americans have to buy insurance or pay a fine. I mean, they don't like the mandate. Nobody likes the mandate, just like nobody likes paying taxes.
Sure.
But that's not the point. You need taxes in order to get services. You need the mandate in order for the insurance to work. So you don't have to like it. That's really never been the point. What you do like is all the other stuff you get out of it, which is to say it helps to pay for health care if and when you get sick, because everybody eventually does.
Yeah. Okay.
Again, that goes back to the whole point of what insurance is in the first place.
Yeah, I don't know. They don't seem... Okay. So I didn't see this. Was this this is in the roundup? I didn't see a
roundup.
link.
It's
okay.
I'll send it to
That's
you.
all right.
It's here to find.
Some things don't make the cut. That's why we have the live show.
Yeah. There we go.
Okay.
Right at the bottom. And I guess the only other really super interesting story besides Trump's Russia going on right at the moment and the battle over healthcare is, of course, the battle over the Supreme Court on the one hand and what's going on in Syria on the other, including with the use of chemical weapons that just happened and the response from the Trump administration, which is, of course, to blame Obama. I think he had some very brief statement that he made about the use of chemical weapons, and it was really odd because it started out with Secretary Tillerson being asked about it, and he refused to comment, which in and of itself is shocking. What you're supposed to say is, I condemn the use of chemical weapons, period, and then walk away, even if you don't know details.
Well, what chemicals?
You're supposed to say that. And he refused to answer the question. And that itself was a minor scandal.
He was
but
busy
again,
with the North
Tillerson is
Korean
not really an
answer.
important figure, so it doesn't really matter. So eventually the Trump administration came out with a statement condemning it. But in the condemnation, I think one of the commenters noted that there was like 35 words condemning the use of chemical weapons in Syria and 40 words condemning Obama.
Oh. Nothing about his electoral vote victory, though?
No, didn't have time. It was a very short statement.
Oh. Well, like I said, they were busy on the North Korea statement.
Yeah, something along those lines. So, we have a completely incompetent foreign policy group who really don't know what they're doing, with Jared Kushner being sent to Iraq to somehow fix things. It's somebody pointed out, imagine if Hillary had won and she sent Chelsea
Yes, right. That's our favorite
to Iraq to fix everything, and how people would react, because it's
very
pretty
positive.
similar, because perhaps Jared even has less skills.
Yeah, it's possible. Is he back from Iraq? You never know when he gets back.
I don't know what he's doing there, and I don't know whether he's back, and I don't know that it matters, but kind of an interesting story there. And then there's the Gorsuch nomination,
right,
with all sorts of foolish analysis about how Democrats are hurting themselves by insisting on a filibuster, because nobody's really explained why.
They've tried.
They've tried, but nobody's come up with a good reason for the Democrats not to. Because it'll change the Senate. Because it'll somehow increase partisanship. I don't know where they've been for the last 8 years.
It's been the
maybe
last 8 years in the past 20.
Maybe reading David Broder columns.
I guess so. Yeah, we went over this in great detail yesterday, but we'll continue. I'm sure we'll talk about it some more with Joan. It doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense whatsoever. And I think that, those that say, listen, if you're going to lose, you might as well lose now on this one, because otherwise you lose this one and then you lose the next one. What's the point of that?
I don't know.
Just, make Mitch McConnell be the one to do this, so you can just show everybody that his, naked ambition to do everything in terms of what's good and we won, so F you. That's his governing philosophy. So just show it.
Sure.
Democrats aren't the ones that are getting rid of the filibuster. It's the Republicans.
That's a recurring problem with headline writers and the reporters themselves. That's been a huge theme. They keep repeating the framing that the Republicans hand them. That is to say, they're making us. It's the Democrats who are doing this. Really, they're the ones forcing us to pull the trigger. And
the Democrats are successfully filibustering a Supreme Court nomination. The rest is up to the Republicans. So let's just be crystal clear about that.
Yeah. Well, right. What we said, nuclear options don't eliminate filibusters. People do.
Right. As somebody else pointed out, the nuclear option was not allowing Merrick Garland to have a hearing. What's happening now is nuclear fallout.
Yes.
It's a completely different thing. And any story that talks about the filibuster and then the end of the filibuster without mentioning Merrick Garland is a story that doesn't have context.
Yeah, absolutely true. Still, it's not changing much of the coverage, but at least we can point to the things that are...
It's not changing the vote either, and the coverage
true.
Isn't changing the vote.
True.
So they got to write about something, and they're just going to have to keep writing the same story over and over till Friday or whenever it is that that vote actually comes up.
Yes. Here's a good point, sort of interesting to think about. Adam Winkler making this point, a constitutional law professor at UCLA, by the way, who makes this point. One benefit, this is worth thinking about, one benefit of the Senate ending the filibuster, okay? By making moderate nominees unlikely, that's what everybody says. Well, now, without the filibuster in a way, Trump can nominate Anthony Napolitano, anybody he wants. Crazy. What's the guy from Mississippi? Was it Mississippi with the Ten Commandments, or was it Alabama?
Oh, Roy Moore.
Yes,
yeah,
Roy Moore. Could be anybody. Judge Judy, for that matter. And I know Bill is actually behind that one, but still, you could nominate anybody by making moderate nominees unlikely. Adam surmises, says it also diminishes the chance that Justice Kennedy, would retire willingly during the Trump administration. Nothing you can do about him accidentally, just dying.
Yeah, doing a Scalia, but these things happen.
Right. So if he were ever pondering a retirement during a Republican administration, it's unlikely to be this one. So maybe, who knows? The guy gets ill. The guy's had it. The guy gets Trump, what would we say? Trump trauma syndrome and just can't take it anymore. I couldn't blame him for that. But it's worth thinking about.
Right.
But,
so Matthew Martin, our friend on Twitter, known as Hyperplanes, points out something which is fairly obvious that I haven't seen other people point out.
Oh.
If Democrats wanted to protest Gorsuch but preserve the filibuster, they should just boycott the Senate vote, not show up. If they want to protest Gorsuch while ending the filibuster, then they should filibuster.
Yeah, I guess.
They have that choice.
Yeah. I mean, if there's going to be a nuclear option, it'll come out the same way, no matter which of those two options you take. Of course.
Well, if you don't show up, he gets, what happens if he doesn't show up? What are the rules there? Do you have to be there? I mean, what happens if only Republicans are in the Senate chamber and then they vote?
Well, first they would have to invoke cloture and, well, you know what?
Is it people present? Is it, that's what I'm asking.
No, it's not. It's those chosen and sworn. It's a constitutional 3/5. So if they boycott, this would be interesting.
Do you send the sergeant at arms to round them up?
They would do that. If they hid out or left the country or went to Iraq to find Jared Kushner or something. Or
states have done this, right? Where people ran away so that they didn't have to vote?
And so if they did that, then they would have a quorum if they could produce all of their own Republicans. And that's always a question mark with just 52. Somebody's usually sick. It's the Senate. They're all 90.
Yeah.
So they would have to round up their own people just to establish a quorum. Then they would call the cloture vote, but they'd only have 52 votes. And the rule is you need 3/5 of those duly chosen and sworn, the constitutional 3/5. It's got to be 60 in a full Senate. Doesn't matter if it's 52-0. So then they would go hunting for people. If they couldn't come up with them,
then what?
That would be fun. This might be a great suggestion because they would then invoke the nuclear option anyway, but there would be no Democrats voting no at the moment.
Yeah.
And no Democrats voting against them on the nuclear option. It would just be them all alone speaking with no opposition saying, we got to shut down the opposition because they're not here. I mean, they would be able to say, well, they're not doing their jobs and they're hiding, and that would be the attack. But they would have to do the nuclear option anyway. So, I mean, the filibuster would be gone unless the Republicans were willing to sit there and if for some reason they were refusing to execute the nuclear option without the Democrats there to witness it, it would protest Gorsuch without ending the filibuster. But if they really wanted to get something done and they wanted to seat him, no, they would have to exercise a nuclear option either way. So I'm not certain that there's a real choice there, but there's a real reason to boycott just to make Republicans look ridiculous, I suppose. But Democrats are going to want to show up and vote no because there are many who, insisted on taking the position that this isn't payback for Garland. I just don't like Gorsuch and I don't think he's qualified. And while that's true, then they're going to have to show up and cast that vote if that's the case. But
right. And if it's not payback for Garland, it's payback for Bork. And if it's not payback for Bork, it's payback for the Civil War.
Yes.
Because I didn't like what happened in 1860, and also 1861 was not a good year.
Right.
And so I owe it to you, so I have to do this.
Yeah, well, if I don't do it now, what's the lesson? You'll have another Civil War.
Right.
So, but that's a good idea. Speaking
I like
of
that
protests,
idea. I think it's a more interesting with the same outcome, but I think it's a more interesting, theater.
Sure, go to lunch and don't come back.
Yeah, see,
Why not?
In fact, if a lot of these guys did that, we'd be better off. I do see that Mitch McConnell has semi-promised that he's not going to get rid of the filibuster for legislative issues.
Yeah.
You still need to pass a 60-vote threshold to bring stuff to the floor, right, in the Senate?
Yes.
So as long as that's the case, Democrats still have some degree of influence in the chamber, and it's not quite like the House is.
No, not yet. So I guess they would, if they were to get rid of it for the Supreme Court, then all the nominations business, all executive calendar business would be, you could invoke cloture by a bare majority. By the way, I was counting last night because somebody asked whether this trade was really worth it, whether the handful of judges that we were able to get through in 2013 and 2014 was worth this terrible cabinet, which does nothing, so I'm not worried about that, or this Supreme Court nomination. I'd still probably say
But it was
yes.
going to happen anyway. I don't
Yes.
understand the
Well,
logic there.
There is that.
They were going to do whatever they want to do because that's the way they govern.
No doubt about that. And by the way, it wasn't really exactly a handful. I went back and took a look. I count about 55 district court federal judges that would otherwise have failed a cloture vote who were then confirmed. There were another couple of them that actually ended up getting 60-plus votes for cloture anyway. But there was a cloture vote on every one of them, another 20 of them. And about 10 circuit court judges, the next level up, all of whom are, having a hand in making decisions about policy and affecting the outcome of the law, and will for life until they retire. And it's no small thing. Yes,
right?
There you go. That's it. That's the thing I was looking for. Not the small one. It's true. You could dispute it and all, but honestly, it's just it wouldn't make a difference if you hadn't done it. You'd be here looking at this nuclear option without the 50-plus judges. So
right. It would be kind of cool if some of them at least wound up ruling on the executive order about travel bans with Muslims.
Yes, and I'm not even sure that some of them haven't done that. I can tell you that some of the people on the circuit courts have saved Obamacare more than once, and they weren't on the court until we did that, and they wouldn't have been there to do that.
So, again, many of the arguments that people are making as to why this shouldn't happen are based on some sort of 1950s David Broderish view of how the Supreme Court works, how the Senate works, how the country works. It's stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't really seen a good argument as to why the Democrats should not do this, which I think is why they're doing this.
The best one or the one that Armando liked the best is taken care of, if you believe Mitch McConnell's promise right now. His only real concern was, he thought, I think he probably wouldn't have gone all the way with this concern, but he wanted people to be arguing, if you're going to argue against filibustering because you're afraid of it being eliminated, then argue that this is a stepping stone to eliminating the legislative filibuster. And some people did do that, and I don't really believe that McConnell is opposed entirely to doing it. Once they hit a wall on something he really wants and the president pressures him for, they're going to have a hard time not doing it. I think there might be some rank and file Republican senators who might balk for whatever reason. But, Ted Cruz and Rand Paul, they're already on record saying we would like to see the legislative filibuster eliminated so that we can get around this stupid reconciliation problem. I don't want to deal with the Byrd rule. Kill the filibuster.
Yeah, let's just make the Senate into the House, because why not? Anyway, that's going to be my wrap-up for today. A little of this, a little of that, but I think the big stories, again, are Trump-Russia, which always remains the biggest story.
Yes.
And there's always more stuff to come. The Susan Rice thing is a nothing burger. 24 hours worth of spending time on it, but that's not really the issue. The issue is that Trump is being investigated. We have the Supreme Court showdown. We have the healthcare fiasco on the part of the Republicans, and those are the big three, I think, that are going on, with a few other things thrown in there, like foreign relations between Syria on the one hand and North Korea on the other, where you really feel the lack of experience, expertise, people who know what they're talking about, anybody who can, in fact, advise the current government about what's going on. And with that, I'll leave you. This is Greg Dworkin speaking to my friend Kagro in the morning, but I am going to read a tweet to you before I go. It's from Jingy, the real Jingy. And it says, Kagro X is talking about my medical coverage here in Central Valley, California, with them from Connecticut, who sounds like he's in the room. Nice and consistent. So hopefully the sound is going out there to your radio audience in a better way, thanks to the new microphone. And today's Wednesday, so hopefully you'll have Joan.
Yes.
And I will be back tomorrow with the full complement of the microphone setup, and we'll see how that goes.
Okay, very good. One of the additional benefits of the microphone setup is that our levels should be relatively equal too.
Levels. We just don't talk about levels enough. I love to call into the radio show and level up, like it's a video game.
Right.
I just went up 5 levels because of what I just did. Now I'm more powerful than ever. So, always good to check levels.
What level are you? Right.
Yeah.
I'm having a level 11.
Level 99.
Something. Okay.
All righty. Take care, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right. Thanks a lot, Greg. You sound great. Okay. There are a lot of things going on. We'll try and catch up with at least some of them. We'll never get to all of them. Here's a question for the audience. Why is it I keep picking up on or picking up bits and pieces of the Syria story, and I know, it's a major incident, obviously. It's this horrible human rights violation, the use of chemical weapons, that is just so outside of my bailiwick that I don't even know what to make of it. But every time I pick up an article, and I really have to, start at the outer layers of, tell me about what happened for dummies kind of thing. Why is it, does anybody know why it is that every time I pick up one of these articles, there's a weird scare quote around something? Like, for instance, this morning stuff was talking about the chemical quote-unquote attack. What is that supposed to mean? Is it because it came from the government that it isn't an attack? I don't know what that's supposed to mean. I'm not sure what to make of it. But I know what to make of, for instance, the idiotic claim from the Trump administration that this is Obama's fault. I don't really need to address that, I don't think. Other things that are happening, something else of considerably less importance, I would venture to say, than a chemical attack, but still of great importance. And here, domestically, a very big and very important issue, apparently, that I have no idea what's going on. A Kardashian made a Pepsi commercial, and it's, I don't know what is it. It's outrageous to people. Here's what I've been able to glean. I have not seen the commercial. I don't know where to see the commercial. Don't try to show me the commercial, I think. Unless you think it would make a good story. From what I gather, the theme of the commercial is supposed to be, I don't know which Kardashian this is. It's not Kim. There's several of them, and I don't know which one. This is the youngest one, or is not a Kardashian? Is it a Jenner? Is that what it is? I don't know. You see, I'm completely out of it. But I guess the gist of this commercial is, hey, if we all just had Pepsi, we wouldn't have so many tremendous social difficulties. Like, I guess the hint was supposed to be police killing black people. Like, give them a Pepsi. Won't you gentlemen have a Pepsi? And then things would be bad. And that's outrageous because a Pepsi's not really going to solve it. And really, Pepsi, don't bother putting a toe into the Black Lives Matter sphere. I don't know. I'm not even certain. I didn't see the commercial. I trust all of you who have seen it and know what you're talking about. There are people that I will take their word for it on the Pepsi commercial, but I want to acknowledge that I've heard of it, and it'll probably take me a couple of days to figure out what the hell, like, that is, what is it even all about, and to, I guess, come up with a good excuse for not addressing it, because I'm flummoxed by the fact that Pepsi would even try something like this. And, I can see from, I think, 100 feet away that it's like, you know what? This is not my thing, not my fight. I'm with these people over here, who are making the arguments about this and who understand this issue. I just trust them. They're good friends. I like them on a number of other issues. I think they're making sense here. I'm not going to go watch the commercial. I probably wouldn't have watched it just because Kardashian, Jenner, and Pepsi, by the way. I hate Pepsi commercials. Pepsi is a fine product and all that. 9 times out of 10 when I say I want to have a Coke at a restaurant and they say we have Pepsi products, I say, okay. So that's the extent of my loyalty to the Pepsi and Coke product lines, I guess. Pepsi commercials are just generally terrible at large, I would say. When I watch the Super Bowl each year, I'm constantly amazed at the stupidity of Pepsi commercials. And I don't really love the Coke commercials, but there's definitely something, I don't know, there's a definite McDonald's Burger King dynamic going on there. They're trying their heart out, and there's really no reason why they shouldn't be the number one product. They just, I don't know, they are not. It doesn't taste the same, and their commercials are kind of just campier and dumber, and I don't know. They're like Thomas Kincaid made commercials or something. And I guess that explains who Pepsi's popular with. Rebecca Roman says, this will explain the outrage and snark. Good. An analysis, a second-by-second analysis. I don't know if we can spend this kind of time, but it's worth knowing that it's out there. Breakdown of, Kendall Jenner. She's a Kardashian despite the fact that she's a Jenner. Is that right? I don't know. She's their younger sister. Do I have that right? God damn it. It's family. Unspeakably tone-deaf Pepsi ad. Okay. It's in the Washington Post. That's good. It's in the arts and entertainment section. All right. Here's the ad, I guess. And, she's, I don't know. Okay. You know what's good? Soda. You know what else is good? Beliefs, causes, movements. Pepsi has married these generic concepts with a new advertisement out Tuesday featuring Kendall Jenner and Skip Marley's Lions. The ad I don't know. The ad contains images of protesters, people standing up for things. What are all those things? Is Kendall proclaiming Black Lives Matter? Is this the resistance? Unclear, but drink Pepsi. Well, okay. That appears a little bit less than sensitive. There's, I don't know. Could I really, honestly, I don't know if I can do a second-by-second breakdown of this thing. But, I think I had the correct idea about why people were outraged about it. And I don't know whether they were genuinely outraged. Some of the, not like I think they were faking it. I just think, kind of like, I'm outraged about the parrots. It's good fun and there's real feeling to it. And it's clearly the case that they're angry for good reason and properly about things that are extraordinarily serious being taken lightly enough to be treated as Pepsi glossovers. But okay, I don't know. I think I'm done with that one. Kendall is Kris Kardashian and Bruce Jenner's daughter. Okay, so she's a half a Kardashian. I mean, I guess in this... All right. Well, she's really not, because Kris Kardashian, I guess, wasn't born a Kardashian, so I don't know. Okay, but I get you. That makes her a half sister. Why do I have to trace these things? Okay, that's just true, and I can't add anything else to it. All right, the other story we haven't touched on yet, having to do with one of the stories we have touched on, the Gorsuch nomination. The big story of the morning is, and I should put it to you this way, I am the first to break this story. This is my own original reporting. It appears that Neil Gorsuch may have plagiarized part of a law journal article that he wrote at some point. My reporting is so thorough that I forget. It had so many facts that I forget exactly what the hell it was he was writing for and why and when. But like I said, it's my own original reporting. I'm not even mad right now, but John Bresnahan and Burgess Everett have totally ripped off my article, and they've published it here in Politico, whatever that is. Gorsuch's writings borrow from other authors. How ironic, since they've borrowed this from me, I maintain. Supreme Court nominee Neil Gorsuch copied the structure and language used by several authors and failed to cite source material in his book and an academic article, according to documents provided to Politico, by which they mean stolen from me. The documents show that several passages from the 10th chapter of his 2006 book, he made it all the way through 9, I guess, without doing it, The Future of Assisted Suicide and Euthanasia, read nearly verbatim to a 1984 article in the Indiana Law Journal. That's going way back. In several other instances in that book and an academic article published in 2000, Gorsuch borrowed from the ideas, quotes, and structures of scholarly and legal works without citing them. Okay, so we've had such scandals before, but this one seems to be relatively genuine. And, I'll put it this way. Here's what I decided to do, and I saw lots and lots of write-ups of it. I'm just going to do this because Atrios knows how to boil things down to what I really should be doing. Honestly, I should be reading his blog, because then I would get 100 stories in the time it takes me to do 2, like I did yesterday. Supreme plagiarism, Atrios writes it this way. As I've often said, I often think plagiarism, quote, scandals are overblown. Citation standards vary with context and type of publication. Not every publication has footnotes. Sometimes what should be well-known quotes are put in as callbacks and poetic references. Not every Bible quote needs to be prefaced with, as it was written in the Bible, for example. Sometimes mere sloppiness is just that, and it is a forgivable offense. But this, he says, is actually plagiarism. The key is that Gorsuch cited original sources while ripping off the secondary ones. In the most striking example, this is a quote from Politico, which he makes clear here by block quoting it. I'm not saying that he stole it from Politico, who stole it from me. In the most striking example, Gorsuch, in his book, appears to duplicate sentences from an Indiana Law Journal article written by Abigail Lawless. That's Lawlis, not Lawless, which would be an ironic middle name for a lawyer. Abigail Lawless Kuzma, without attributing it to her. Instead, he uses the same sources that Kuzma used. Get it? A 1982 Indiana court ruling that was later sealed, a well-known pediatrics textbook, Rudolph's Pediatrics, it's not about reindeer in case you were wondering, and a 1983 article in the Bloomington Sunday Herald. He dug deep, except he didn't really dig deep. He found one article and then said, who's going to know? And we almost didn't. But Atrios and a couple of other people who are actual professors say, yeah, if you did this in my class, you'd probably fail, and you'd probably even face expulsion too. So it's real. It's out there. Republicans are dismissing it. They say it's just another, distraction, a piece of garbage. So he forgot to cite something, et cetera, et cetera. So, it'll go that way. Although, good point made last night by Kate Sherrill, just sort of messaging me about this yesterday and asking me if I had seen the story about the Gorsuch plagiarism. And she wonders whether there are any senators looking out for looking for an out on voting for Gorsuch who might use a plagiarism scandal as a reason to flip. And I suppose it's possible, but I think they're all kind of entrenched right now. But, who knows? Susan Collins may suddenly become deeply troubled about this and decide to go the other direction. It's worth trying. It's good that it was brought up. Speaking of it being brought up, one of the other stories which was not yet brought up, the Jeff Merkley story. He apparently spent the night, if you're sympathetic to what he's doing or to him in general, a lot of people spent their mornings insisting that he was filibustering, but he wasn't. But okay, he was making a very long protest speech against Gorsuch's nomination, against his qualifications, his nomination in general, and the notion of it being a stolen Supreme Court seat. And of course, that's a point well worth making for several hours at a time. I don't know if is he still going, Joan?
He's still going. He will
Joan
go
McCarter
until 10:15 your time, when McConnell has claimed the morning for Republicans.
Yes. So that'll put that
That'll be
in
15
context.
and a half hours.
It's terrific. It's tremendous. It's heartening, but it's not a filibuster if somebody else can say, hey, at 10:15, I'm coming.
Right. It's not a filibuster.
But it's okay.
Which isn't going to exist anymore. Although McConnell says he will keep it for legislation.
Until he meets a roadblock.
Guaranteed. Uh-huh.
Yeah. There's no reason for him to do it all at once. I think it would be strategically a good idea, but for him.
Yeah, for him.
But, okay. I don't need to give him advice. He'll figure it out. He's probably not even kidding. And the margins are close enough that if he decided to sneak it by and come and word his motion in such a way that it would eliminate all filibusters, if one or two of them find that out, then he would lose his motion, and that can't be done. He could go back and revise it, obviously, but he'd rather not risk it. He as insincere as he does depend on keeping the trust of his own conference. So they don't want to be surprised by that.
No.
So anyway,
and some of them are at least verbally dragging their heels in doing this. Lindsey Graham, John McCain, Susan Collins,
yes,
the usual suspects. They're going to do it.
Yes,
but they're going to complain about it all the way, and that might be a bridge too far for them.
Yes, it may well be. I mean, Collins has on occasion availed herself of that leverage and said, well, I might not vote for cloture unless I get some concessions in this thing and we move this bill a little bit my way. I was going to say to the center, but that's not where she is.
No.
But so she's able to use that leverage. Others are big talkers but rarely use the leverage. But I think we've got everybody pretty much nailed. Even since last week on the Democratic side, we said that Pat Leahy was going to be a no, yes. And so he was.
Yes.
No, I don't know. I don't think we should be filibustering. I hate the idea of filibustering a Supreme Court justice. It's never been done before. I'm an institutionalist. Yeah. Can I fast forward to Thursday? I reluctantly join with my colleagues. Yeah, that's okay. Thank you. That's the Pat Leahy play, and they're used to it in Vermont. So they said by the week's end he'll be ready.
Right. And he is the dean of the Senate, so he does kind of have to stand up for the way it used to be.
Yes. One last try for him, I guess.
I guess so.
All right. Well,
it's one of the things that I think Merkley's doing well. In showing how the Senate is supposed to actually work.
Yeah.
Just the process, the very fact that he is doing this, he's showing how the Senate is supposed to work and highlighting how McConnell has abused it.
Yes. And this is also, this is what you would have to do under his preferred proposal for reforming the legislative filibuster, which is you can have it. You just have to work at it. You can't just wave a piece of paper at somebody and say, yeah, no vote on that, thanks. I got to go.
Yeah.
So that's good. And I see he's winning praise for his speech, in particular for calling out Orrin Hatch for having literally said Obama should nominate Garland, and then Hatch turning around and saying, who now? What? I don't have to do anything. Excuse me. What? Not going to help you. Sorry.
Yeah. Which, is not necessarily an old-fashioned kind of Senate thing to do.
No.
If he was going to be really old-fashioned, he would bring a cane to the floor.
Right.
But that doesn't happen anymore.
And nor should it.
No, we don't advocate violence on the floor of the Senate.
Right. I don't know.
Just rhetorical violence sometimes.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. We'll live with the consequences of that. So, there's a
honestly,
lot of
the hypocrisy of the Republicans has. We always talk about hypocrisy of Republicans. Sure. It's become a sort of empty complaint because it's so blatant. On this one, it's just astounding.
It really is. It's amazing. You think about, how could somebody sleep at night when they do those sorts of things? But I guess it also highlights that it's not just. Like Trump isn't brand new entirely. He does have his own brand of doing this stuff, but we all marvel at how could he stand there and just say something that's blatantly untrue and everybody can see it. And I guess you realize, the oldest of old school Republicans, Orrin Hatch, stands there and says, first, you should nominate Garland. And then Garland gets nominated and he says, don't know what you're talking about. Don't know why you did that. I'm not going to vote for him. And then, of course, right now saying, this is outrageous. No one has ever blocked a Supreme Court nomination on partisan grounds, except for the one I just did.
Yeah.
So, all right, we're used to it by now. But
we're used to it by now.
Trump has.
I want to see Orrin Hatch defeated.
That would be great. Is that in the offing anytime soon?
He should. He's 82.
Yeah.
He's at least 80. it might be time for him to think about hanging it up. But this isn't something apparently that Republicans or Democrats do.
No. Instead, well, they wait.
80's the new 60.
Yeah, well, that's because we have the greatest healthcare system in the world.
For senators.
Right. Well, it's excellent for them. It's free. So, you just go on, head on down to or take your hover around to the office of the attending physician and get yourself some free health care. That's why they live so long. Guys like Orange Hatch, I guess, count on dying in office. And it's a good plan because if you die in office, everybody has to say, what a patriot you were
right.
when you die. And we give you a state funeral and everybody, well, I disagreed with him, but by golly, we were always on good, friendly terms or whatever. If
you're not in the Senate anymore and you die, you just sort of,
yeah. There's a story. It's in the USA Today under Utah.
Right.
So that's the ticket to heaven. I guess heaven is good press.
Or in Hatch's case, getting your own planet.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. I think
that's
right.
What happens.
I don't know.
Let's die.
It's okay. I mean, I don't know anything about it. I don't know what's after. Yeah, what's after death for Mormons? I don't.
I don't
like the Pepsi commercial.
Understand the planet thing. But it's a thing.
Look, it's a theory. Heaven could be a planet. Sure. What do I know? I'm going to put this on the shelf next to the Pepsi commercial and let.
The Pepsi commercial.
I'm assured that it's worth analyzing, but I can't. I don't know if I want to do it live. Plus, I figured you didn't want to
do it live.
Okay. What else have we? What would you like to do live at this point? We have how many stories to cover here?
Well, Greg just did such a great job talking about zombie Trump care. I'm not sure that we need to cover it again. Although this one seems even slimmer than the first one in terms of its ability to get through the House.
Because it's worse?
This one I have a hard time seeing Ryan even hinting at bringing to the floor. Because why would he make his Republicans do that? There's going to be rebellion before it gets that far. Because they're not going to want to take a vote on this thing. The Senate is not, it's even worse for getting through the Senate than the previous version. It has all of the parliamentarian problems, plus a few more. Because getting rid of the essential health benefits and getting rid of community rating or allowing states to do it is, again, regulatory. It can't.
Yeah.
It's a big stretch to think that this could be done through budget reconciliation.
True. And eliminating the legislative filibuster would help them with that, as Rand Paul and Ted Cruz are happy to remind everybody. But I am curious, like, for instance, there's another one. This one's a bit more of a mystery. No one likes this. Who's doing this thing no one likes? Whose idea is this?
The White House and Rand Paul?
Is this what came out of the Gulf?
I think it might be what came out of the Gulf. He said, go talk to the Freedom Caucus guys. We can get him. We can get him. And maybe it's Rand Paul's grand scheme for getting rid of the legislative filibuster. I don't know. It's sort of hard to see the rest of the Senate going along with anything Rand Paul really wants to do.
Yeah.
He's not really known as the collegial type that people want to rally around.
He's the most interesting man in politics, though, or was at one point, like 2 years ago. I think.
I think I missed that.
I think he got a Time magazine cover or something while he was in the primaries. That week he was still running. He was the most interesting man in politics, and then it was like, oh my God, Donald Trump! Wow.
Yeah, it kind of trumps everybody.
Yeah, Trump stole the most interesting man in politics thing from Rand Paul and stole the big mouth thing from Chris Christie. Who would have guessed that why don't we take the worst attributes of these two who have no chance, marry them together with terrible hair. And,
throw in some fake tan.
yeah, and some corruption and whatnot. That ought to do it, right? I wouldn't have bet on it, but I don't know. The Apprentice, people loved it. So, okay.
People loved it.
Here we are.
It's a strange, strange world.
Yeah. All right. So, they'll they purport to be bringing this thing back, but I keep reading every morning that there's less and less chance that it would reach the floor in either the House or the Senate. And, of course, if it's a White House initiative, no one's obligated to do anything
Right.
for the White House.
It seems to me that it's primarily a White House thing. Why, I don't know. Because Trump doesn't like to lose, because he's changeable. A week and a half ago, he was sick of it and didn't want to deal with it anymore. Now it's back.
Yeah. I guess whatever strikes
It's
him at the
Trump.
moment.
What can you say? But I do think this is primarily coming from the White House. Although it would still, once again, be handy for Paul Ryan to have done it for tax purposes when it comes to writing his tax reform.
I guess so. The other thing that you mentioned that had me puzzled this morning, and I don't know whether it's I wasn't sure what kind of question it would really be, but I saw them discussing the worst aspects of this second round of Republican repeal bill, saying, so they would be essentially eliminating any prohibitions against, charging people more for pre-existing conditions. They'd get rid of that. One of the most popular parts.
Insurance companies being able to refuse coverage to people with pre-existing conditions.
Yeah, so we're back to that. And
so
then,
they say that is preserved, and in theory that is preserved. Insurance companies aren't going to be able to say, oh, you have acne?
Yeah.
We're not going to insure you. But they will be able to say, oh, you have acne? We'll be able to charge you 7 times more than we would somebody else of your age.
So you'd just be priced out by the invisible hand would block you from entering the market.
Sure, we will cover you and your cancer. We just won't pay for your chemotherapy.
Right. Well, but we can ensure that you do have cancer. And you'll keep it as well. So, that's not very helpful either. But they were basically eliminating all the things that made it worth reforming the insurance markets at all, or simply making it possible for you to be priced out of the market instead of being just outright refused. And then there was, I guess the plan was that they were going to allow, or one proposal was to allow states to opt out.
That's what they're telling the Freedom Caucus. Well, states can do this. It's states' rights. And they're telling the moderates, well, sure, but states are never going to do this, so don't worry about it.
But my
it's
question
just a
was,
soft to the Freedom Caucus.
Okay, so they love states' rights, and that sounds good, and they get their base excited when they talk about states' rights. I was curious how this squares with erasing state lines, as they put it, as Trump puts it when he talks about healthcare reform. Yeah, we're going to get to that. It might only be in round 2 or round 3 or whatever. I don't know whether this is round 2 or still round 1. But how do you allow states to opt out of things and then erase state lines so that, like, can a state say, in our state, you can't, you can go ahead and charge whatever you want for people with pre-existing conditions. You just can't say no to them at the outset.
Right, but then an insurance company from Kansas wants to do precisely that and sell their insurance in your state.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Right.
They don't know. They haven't thought it out that far.
Well, all right.
Because this really isn't about policy.
It's just another
They don't
patchwork of
really care about how it works.
Well, I guess, that comes, we're right back to it's just a patchwork of whatever will get us to a win, whatever that might mean. Like, to pass something, even if it's empty, is better for them, maybe. They think than actually making sense. But I don't know. It would become a pretty difficult thing to do unless they just really put nothing in it. But who knows? I have no idea what they think they can come up with. But I guess I'm heartened by the news that every concession they seem to make loses them more votes than it gains.
It does.
This is the art of the deal.
It does. And this one is so blatant, I think, that everybody jumping on the fact that this does get protections for people with pre-existing conditions. There's no way you can plausibly say that would still exist under this law. I think most moderates get that.
Okay.
And are not going to go home and face their constituents this weekend, supporting that. Which is another thing that was really odd about all of this talk coming back. The thought that they could actually jam it onto the floor this week.
What was that? Who said that?
When recess starts this weekend, when they're going to go get screamed at by their constituents again, whose idea was this?
I mean, certainly you could see it being entertained in the White House. They don't go anywhere where there are constituents who are angry. They they screen them out, or you're not allowed in, or everybody at Mar-a-Lago is happy, or I don't allow anybody on my golf course, so what's the difference?
Keep your parrots away.
Right, that's true. Thank God, at least we'll have Australian parrots. And somebody did, point out that there's probably a legitimate thing to it. I mean, it's illegitimate.
Well, apparently the Fish and Wildlife Service has been considering taking them off of the list for a while. So.
I guess so. And I'm sure they would have gotten around to it. But Trump is the one who did it. He ordered it. It's interesting that they would even associate themselves with it. I know that they like to jump in and claim credit for things, but like jobs that people announced 2 years ago were going to be created, he comes in and says, "See, jobs.
Yeah,
I'm bringing
look
them
what
back."
I did.
But I mean, are they that desperate? They're like, well, what is going on out there? Is there not really literally nothing? Tell me something the government did yesterday. Tell me they did something. Well, the Fish and Wildlife Service took some parrots out. That's right, they did. Damn it, you betcha. Donald Trump did that. Thumbs up for that.
But it was excellent in giving you a great punchline about the dead parrot bounce. I mean, anytime you can evoke Monty Python.
Right. Oh, people love that. Oh, straight to it. And it's not even the Norwegian blue, which I imagine is there such a parrot? I mean, is that part of the joke? There wouldn't be any Norwegian parrots, right?
Norway not being particularly tropical.
Right. Yeah. Well, okay. So that's, I never bothered to research that level of the joke. I just laughed at the fact that he's screaming at a dead parrot. But I don't know. I don't know what made them think that this was something they should jump in and try and grab credit for. But somebody did say that maybe this would mean that rare bird dealer types, if I imagine there's still a few living in volcano layers around the world, would be able to bring them in for big money. Now you could import them, and I wouldn't doubt that there's some Zsa Zsa Gabor type living in Trump Tower who has these birds or always wanted them. And
this is something that just flitted by last week. It seems like he did lift prohibitions on importing exotic animals of some stripe last week. And there was so much going on last week that I didn't really pay attention to what it was, but I think that happened too.
Well, maybe he belongs to like the movie, what was it, The Freshman. He belongs to one of those clubs where they eat endangered animals every once in a while. That could be it. I don't know.
Possibly.
Trump Tower is probably full of people who are keeping illegal exotic animals. If not in Trump Tower, then there are many other estates or underground volcano layers. And I wouldn't doubt that somebody prevailed on him in the elevator at Trump Tower some time ago. It's terrible what the government is doing, trying to take away my Liger collection. And I need your help once you're president. I don't know. Whether the parrots have anything to do with it, but it's pretty desperate. I mean, I guess it's only important in the sense that what in the hell? This is the first 100 days thing for this guy.
Yeah.
This is what he has to turn to. Well, I'm the one who finally ended the brutal oppression of parrot importations from Australia. And maybe that's why he was so angry with the Prime Minister.
Maybe it was about the parrots.
Must have been. It never got mentioned. No one thought it was important. But he showed us. I don't know. That seems like a pretty weird thing.
Unbidden came that picture of he and teenage Ivanka, preteen Ivanka, I think, sitting on the statue of copulating parrots.
Oh, yes. I've heard about I've seen that picture. Did that just show up in your
It just the penny dropped for me. Trump and parrots.
That could be it. I remember that one. Is that at Mar-a-Lago, that statue? I don't know.
I have no idea.
Speaking of Mar-a-Lago, I guess is this the weekend that the Chinese president is coming and going to Mar-a-Lago with him, or is that another weekend? I know that's coming
next weekend's Easter, so it seems like this weekend would be more likely. Although I'm sure Trump doesn't recognize Easter.
Oh, right, Easter, right? Yeah, sure. Love the Easter.
But I don't know if Jared's had enough time to organize the weekend at Mar-a-Lago since he's been kind of busy in Iraq and
but he's
solving
a China guy,
the Middle East peace crisis and the opioid crisis and reforming government and there's at least one other thing he's doing right now.
He's in Iraq.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got the lead on China.
Criminal justice reform.
Really? I didn't even realize that one.
Yeah.
That must be why it's going so swimmingly.
Yes.
Does he own any shares in Pepsi? Is that what this is about? This is how he's going to get it done?
That must be it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I understand that. Let's see. I did have an article somewhere about this. I don't know whether this is the weekend or not, but they're going to go down there, and I don't think the president of China plays golf, but Donald Trump thinks that foreign leaders will think Mar-a-Lago is impressive. He likes to bring them there for that reason. And, I'm not sure when he's planning on this. And this article doesn't tell me, although what does raise an interesting prospect of Chinese billionaires who happen to be members of Mar-a-Lago, dissident billionaires at that. There's actually a whole New York Times article about the possible wild card of this dissident Chinese billionaire businessman, like making serious diplomatic waves for the meeting between the two, to which you'd normally say, it's all well and good, but we just won't read the papers and see what he says. We'll keep him out of the White House. But no, they're having a meeting at Mar-a-Lago, and, well, nothing we can do. The guy's a Mar-a-Lago member. He's paid his money. He can walk in. I don't even understand how that's a possibility. Why? I mean, is it beyond Trump to think, why don't I close Mar-a-Lago for the day? At least to this guy? But I guess he's so intent on selling memberships as access. I mean, really, if you're really contemplating the possibility that billionaire dissidents can walk in and disrupt American diplomacy because they've paid their dues to Donald Trump's pocket, I think we're way through the looking glass if that's a real problem.
That's how his world works.
And this may be ultimately why it might work. I noticed that Jen Hayden and sort of picked up on your idea of buying me a Trump National Golf Club membership so that I could go and report on Donald Trump when he goes to play golf in Virginia. And I figured it's a fun idea, but they'll just take our money and kick me out. But maybe they won't. Although this guy is a billionaire. He may be paying a lot more. But imagine the idea of the president saying, "There's nothing I can do. He paid me." Yeah. So that seems pretty surprising. I'll share that article with all of you.
It seems surprising. It's not. It's Trump.
Yeah. I mean,
it's totally not how anything has ever worked before.
I really had wondered about this, like whether he would he accept money now? Like, for instance, if you wanted to join Mar-a-Lago and you were, who does he think is terrible? Is there anybody left?
Well, us.
Yeah, I mean,
But-
we could join. I wonder if he would let Hillary Clinton join Mar-a-Lago.
If she paid enough.
Yeah, I guess. But I mean, I guess I'm thinking of sort of international actors. I don't know if there's
Yeah.
any internationally recognized bad guys that he thinks are bad guys. But okay, well, I guess you get to do that, and that's because he's insane and shouldn't be president. If I could sum up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But here we are. He is president. Neil Gorsuch, the plagiarist, is going to end up on the Supreme Court. Scott Lemieux. No, it's Paul Campos at Lawyers, Guns, and Money has a good post on it, an original contribution to the literature.
Maybe Scott Lemieux wrote it first. And he told it.
Perhaps. And Campos just put his name on it.
What does he have to say?
It really is. It's straight across plagiarism. Really, it's very hard to say how it's anything less.
Okay, I saw it, and I guess the first headline I saw when it said a short part or a short passage of his book, and I thought, oh, well, maybe it's just too minor. But then I saw the colorized versions of things. They were highlighting in different colors sections that had been lifted almost verbatim. And it's, yeah, I mean, it's when I say almost verbatim, it's sort of like, I would say like 7th or 8th grade version of, well, I don't want to be a plagiarist by copying it word for word, so I'm going to change like the word infant to baby. It's literally what happened in this one.
Right. Baby to infant. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really, I mean, the sentence structure is the same. I imagine there's more of it than just that, but sometimes they try to minimize it by saying, well, it's just this one section or whatever, but I don't know. I guess that, well, are people making mention of it? I know that Jeff Merkley got wind of it.
Yes, he talked about it in his, I'm not sure at which hour. Hour 11 maybe? Hour 12? But yeah, he did talk about it. You know, it's not going to be enough to bother any Republican because Josh Marshall had this one nailed down. They want him to be Scalia. So, fine, use Scalia's words, put your name on it. That's all we need.
Okay, well, that'll take care of the issue, I guess. We meant him to be a plagiarist.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're supposed to be Scalia, so, you know, go be an originalist that's being Scalia.
That's how ironic. An originalist.
An originalist.
Plagiarist.
With no original words.
Well, it's there. That's maybe, I guess that's the funniest thing about it, right? You call yourself an originalist, but all you're going to do is to bring another story into it, parrot their words. You know, you're not going to expand on constitutional jurisprudence at all. You're just going to use what they wrote and repeat it back, which is sort of plagiarism, except, I don't know, I guess when it's founding fathers, you're not supposed to count that against them. Well, it looks like Merkley has just finished up.
Merkley has finished up. We've got Grassley on the floor now, which is a big contrast, I guess you could say.
It's a big come down from that. So,
yeah.
Are they? Well, did they filed for cloture yesterday?
Yesterday.
Okay, so today
so it'll ripen soon after they begin tomorrow. Yeah. An hour after they go into session tomorrow. I think I saw.
Yes, I believe that's correct. And so then I guess they'll go to the immediate vote because they're so frustrated for having waited a couple of days to get this nomination started, and that is frustrating. And I guess here's another question. I wondered whether McConnell, well, he hasn't hinted at anything, but of course he invokes the nuclear option. If everything goes as expected, tomorrow, an hour after they start, McConnell makes his motion to simply invoke cloture by majority vote, and they do it.
Well, will they have the cloture vote first?
I don't know. You mean like the regular one and
Yeah, well, they have
fail
the
at
regular
60?
one. They get the 40, I think it's going to be 44 Democrats against and independents.
I don't know whether they do. I think that the model for it in November of 2013 was they just went right to, you know what? I'm going to bring up the cloture motion, and I make the motion that we simply deem it adopted by majority vote. And
It would take, I guess it's going to be how much time is it going to take?
Yeah.
If they go ahead and have the cloture vote, how can Democrats drag their heels? How can they extend that?
Well, that's a good question.
Because they want to get out
Let's see,
Friday to start Easter recess.
Yeah. I mean,
Which
Democrats
is going to
do
last
too.
until April 25th, and by the way, government funding ends on April 29th.
Yes.
Just
That's
tossing that in there.
That's true. Even if things go well for them, they're going to be in trouble.
It seems like politically it would be better for McConnell to have the Democrats actually cast their filibustering votes before changing the rules. But I don't know that he particularly cares about what's better for him politically.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And let's see, where's the? I'm sure if I take a quick look at the votes back in 2013, and I remember it was in November, so I shouldn't have to scroll too far back. And I think it was late November. We can tell how they. I mean, that doesn't mean that's how he'll do it, just because Reid did it this way. But I just was kind of curious. Did Reid bother with the cloture motion first?
I could be remembering incorrectly, but it seems like he did.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'll see if we can bring that up and find it. I think.
It was 3.5 years ago.
Yeah, I know.
You're asking a lot of my memory.
That is a tough one. Well, I'll see if I can find out about it anyway. Was this the one here? Let's see. I can't remember. Here's a good trivia question. Who were they confirming?
It was the 3 DC Circuit judges.
Okay.
Whose names I should remember.
Pillard, Wilkins, and
Nina Pillard, Robert Wilkins.
All right, I'm going to scroll down and see if I can figure it out here. It was to say Circuit Court Millett?
Millet. Patricia
Okay.
Millet.
All right. So let's see. For the first one of those, just by way of checking our work here as I'm scrolling through, on the cloture motion to the motion to invoke cloture on the nomination of Cornelia T.L. Pillard to be U.S. Circuit Judge for the D.C. Circuit, November 12th, 2013. Roll call number 233, 56 to 41, rejected. So they did have that cloture vote first. Then they also had the vote on Wilkins, and it went down 53-38. And there were some other votes interspersed with all these things. They didn't do them all at once. And then Millett, 57-40 on November 21st. Then, I guess this must have been when it happened, November 21st, because there's a motion to proceed to a motion to reconsider the motion to invoke cloture on the nomination of Patricia A. Millett, agreed to 57-40. So there it was. Roll call 239 on November 21st, at which point, by the way, McConnell decided to try and waste some time, making a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I remember that, yes.
Which was then rejected. Then a motion made to reconsider the motion to invoke cloture on the nomination of Millett, having passed the motion to proceed to it. That was also agreed to 57-43. Then an appeal of the ruling of the chair, the Reid appeal, then a appeal from McConnell. So there were several parliamentary maneuvers afterwards, and Democrats can and should consider doing the same thing. The problem is, will they want to waste more time before Easter recess or not? If it wasn't for that, you might see them playing around, and you may still see them waste a couple of, take a couple of half-hour votes protesting everything. But I think they should be protesting almost everything at this point. I guess they'll maybe have that option post-Easter recess. But, yeah, I guess this ends in, if nuclear option's invoked, it ends in this nomination going through. But I think they could probably, it would be interesting if they just said, well, we're going to make a stink straight through Easter. It sucks, but we're going to do it. The Republicans may opt to go home, but we won't. And if once they opt to go home and we haven't taken care of the confirmation, then that's at least a temporary win. I would stand there and say, because there's no reason not to simply say, for instance, everybody else is being hypocritical as hell in all this, right? So when they say, I move that we invoke cloture on this nomination by simple majority, you say, well, that's against the rules. I object to that. We need a vote on whether or not that can even be a motion that's made. Well, it can be. Well, I appeal your ruling that it can be. All right.
You know what I think we need? I think we need a post from Kagro at Daily Kos on all of the ways Democrats can delay this.
It comes down to simply calling every single thing into question, even things that you didn't think were possible to question. And
parliamentary inquiry on everything?
Basically. And depending on your tolerance for staying overnight when in the face of what should have been an Easter recess, you could, you drag this out for a long time. Eventually the chair will start just ruling you out of order, sua sponte from the chair, at which point, of course, then you say, well, I will appeal that ruling. Well, you can't. Well, all right. But I will anyway. I appeal. Well, you're not going to get a vote. Well, then I appeal that. And you could go on for some time, at least making them look bad. But honestly, I'm to the point where I say, I'd come in on Thursday and McConnell moves to bring up the cloture motion, and I say, you know what? I don't even know that Gorsuch has been nominated officially, to be honest with you. Does anybody have the paperwork on this? I haven't seen it. Oh, here it is. I don't know if this is Donald Trump's signature. I didn't see him sign it. It's stupid sounding, but just the other week he walked out of his own press conference forgetting to sign things. He signed things that says he was surprised to find out he put Bannon on a National Security Council. He didn't read that.
I did that.
He's been there's been controversy where he signed a executive order and then they put it up on the website and the text was all wrong. No, that's not the right one. He signed a different one. You don't know anything about what this guy's doing. He doesn't know anything about what he's doing. I'd say, it's stupid because normally, no, you don't have to contest when the president sends you a signed document that says, I hereby nominate Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court of the United States. You're able to take them at their word. But I don't know that with this guy. Did he sign it? Is this really his signature? I didn't see it. Do you have it on video? Can you close in on the paper there? I don't know. Maybe he was signing his lunch tab for all I know. I'm going to make you come here and sign these things in front of me every time, or else I'm going to spend 6 hours on votes questioning your every written communication. You want to nominate somebody? It's going to cost you a day worth of, are you sure this is really his signature? Did he sign this paper? Is this right? Is everything spelled correctly? Is this the person? He didn't put the guy's social security number in here. I don't know that there's not another Neil Gorsuch out there who's a lot better. Let's confirm that guy. I bet the telephone book has a better one. They should nominate him. But it's absurdist, but it's something he brings on himself by being as absurd as he is, for one thing. And you want to be nuclear, we'll be nuclear back, I guess, with this. That was the whole point.
I think it's a good way of highlighting just how extreme Mitch McConnell has been on all of this. The Merrick Garland nomination fiasco, That's unheard of.
Yes.
Except, of course, we've heard of it because McConnell did it.
Yes. Well, we've heard a lot of things. A lot of things McConnell has done, people apparently haven't heard of. I mentioned this with Armando yesterday, that just the one example of Sam Stein, but others. Now, I see the same thing, even after Sam Stein did it, asking or insisting, well, if it wasn't for it wasn't for the nuclear option being invoked in 2013, McConnell would never be doing this now. But that's a historical. He was asking for it in 2005.
Yeah.
8 years before Reid ever did it. You don't have to guess at what if he hadn't. Because he hadn't in 2005.
No. It took 8 years of Harry Reid building up to this for it to happen. McConnell's doing it essentially overnight.
Yes. That was another sort of point that he didn't wait at all. And the idea that the press was so willing to eat up the frustration line. Republicans are frustrated about
it's
this
the amnesia. And I wrote about this a couple of days ago. The amnesia of everybody over Merrick Garland is really kind of astounding to me.
Yeah. There's no explaining that. It was a big story. You all reported it. You did it yourself. I see your byline on it. Why are you forgetting about that? Well, past is the past. Optics now.
Optics.
I guess. Let me see. I want to scroll back through your timeline here. Was there... When was that?
Oh, yeah, I think it ran first thing yesterday morning. I wrote it the night before, just because I'd been on Twitter screaming at people, Merrick Garland, Merrick Garland.
What's wrong with you people? Yeah. All right, well, we'll share that one with everybody. Yeah, okay. No, this is another Gorsuch story. There it is, massive outbreak of amnesia. There we go. I'll keep that one open so that we can include that in our roundup post.
Orrin Hatch, Chuck Grassley,
yeah.
Sam Stein. I don't know if Sam Stein made it. I don't know that he'd been tweeting about it yet. It just is astounding to me.
Well, a lot of astounding things. Although, as I was scrolling down, I rolled past your Trump signs away your internet privacy story.
Oh, right. That happened.
I almost forgot about that one.
Yeah. So, there you go, folks.
Does anybody know why?
Economic insecurity. Trump's taking care of it.
Yeah, well, I did see lots of people point out that will bring back a lot of coal mining jobs.
Yeah, it will.
People will say, I better get back to the mines before I waste any more time on the internet and they find out what I'm looking at. I guess. But what's the... who would be a person who says, this is a good idea and here are my reasons? I see who voted for it. I see who signed it. I didn't watch the debate on it, and I can't imagine what you would say about it, but what is the nonsensical thing that supporters said made this a good idea? Do you know? Innovation?
Free speech? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm at a loss.
It's somehow going to make the free markets freer.
They can sell a thing that they couldn't sell before.
Yeah.
This is a thing. So
this is going to be a problem for Jeff Flake when he runs for the election in 2018. Because, there's still a strong sort of Goldwater sense among Republicans and everybody in Arizona. Arizona's sort of a true libertarian kind of libertarian place.
Well,
and I don't think that this is going to go over particularly well there if we can find a good candidate against him.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know where it plays well.
I have no idea where it plays well except in the boardrooms of big telecom.
I mean, I guess they get to sell that stuff, and that's exciting to them. But yeah, I don't know. Well, libertarians I don't know. I don't even know. But I guess if there are real libertarians left and they're in Arizona, why didn't Jeff Flake know that?
Yeah. Why did Jeff Flake make this the first thing he put on the floor this year? Because he's getting a lot of money.
Yeah, I guess so. Boy,
from telecoms. Yeah. That they'll make sure that his reelection bid is well funded.
I guess.
I can't see any other rationale for this one.
Yeah.
Besides, well, Obamacare hatred. Obamacare. Sorry. It's just so drilled into my brain that I can't say Obama without adding the care to the end.
I see. Now I'm like, now they're really beyond me. I do not understand how Obamacare has anything to do with this. Well, the website didn't work. Okay. That's it. It's internet.
It's, you have to erase everything Obama did. This is one of the things that happened under Obama, so it has to go. That really is the only rationale besides big telecom gives me a lot of money.
Yes.
That I can possibly fathom out of this.
It wasn't even something that happened. I mean, okay, there was it's the way you have to put it. So the regulation that said you couldn't sell it came into existence under Obama, but it's a negative thing. Like, you haven't done this yet and you can't. You have to continue to not do this. Well, that thing continued to not happen under Obama, so it should happen because that's the opposite of what he did. So okay, and I do see that in your piece here that the big freak out is happening at Reddit's the Donald subgroup, which should
that
be
wasn't
funny.
What we voted for.
Yeah. Oh, what?
Yeah.
Well,
Trump regrets.
Yeah. That's a browsing history I'd buy. Those guys are like, no, we're not, Okay.
The sad thing is you can't probably really buy anybody's browsing history as a private citizen. But the fundraising behind this could go to good work. In, for example, beating Jeff Flake in 2018.
Yes, right. So, now who can buy what? And I guess I'm still unclear as to how specific it can get. And I'm sure that the excuse is, well, it's not that you can just say, give me my neighbor's browsing history. You can buy very specific information about a large population of people. But, I don't see how you could say you can't
give me the
that
names
down.
Of everybody who looked for Prada shoes on your network in the past.
I don't think
7
anybody knows how
days.
it's going to work, though. I mean, is that a guess at what you can do with it, or I guess it's open-ended.
That's pretty much what advertisers will be able
Sure, they would want
to ask. And that could be advertisers, if it's Prada shoes for Lexus vehicles or, other high-end products.
Yes. How to find a Russian spy to work with.
There you go.
If you Googled that one. I have a good, the explanation here. One of our listeners, Michael Musson, says, there we go. We finally figured this out. Under Obama, no one colluded with Russians. So, you know what we have to do. That's where it came from. Why are you working with the Russians? This doesn't make any sense. Is it really just that they buy so much of your real estate? Why are you doing this? Well, I know Obama didn't, and then look what happened. So, okay, that's what I'm going to do. Well, that's true. Obama
makes
never
as
resigned.
Much sense as anything else.
That. Yes.
Thank you for that answer.
That could be it. We should be talking about that. You know what Obama never did? He never resigned. Everybody wanted him to resign. He wouldn't do it. Didn't have the spine. Didn't have the guts. Not Donald Trump. That guy's got guts. Or so I've heard. Looks like he's wimping
change
out.
The topic briefly. You know how classy Jeff Merkley is? I saw him do this on the floor, but he just did it in a tweet.
Oh?
Thanking the Capitol Police, the stenographers, the clerks, the pages, the cloakroom staff, doorkeepers, and the officers of the Senate who were there with him all night.
Yes, and had to be. So, yeah, that's the downside. You do something like that, and what about the poor people who can't go home because you want to, well, that's the job, but thank you for doing it, and, maybe take them out to breakfast or something.
Well, I think it was pretty classy of him to recognize that.
If you acknowledge it at all, it's a major step forward. There's a lot of senators who say, well, I understand that they had to stay, but that's what we have these people for. And you don't want to do that. You want instead to take time to think, okay, well, that's nice of him for recognizing that. And
he's a good guy.
Yeah. And he gave up a long night to show this. I was wondering about this. It's a good test to see how long you can speak, because there will come a time, for instance, when they were when the Heritage Foundation was shopping around the idea of let's force talking filibusters and overcome them that way without even having to use the nuclear option. And we were analyzing the possibility that might work. Not everyone can speak as long as Jeff Merkley. He's a bit of an endurance enthusiast, I believe.
Which is why, he's a triathlete.
Yeah.
But it's why it's an effective tool. It's why the filibuster is a real thing. You have to be very committed. Mm-hmm. It should be hard to do.
It should be. Not everybody's going to be able to go 15 hours like him, but I think that they could probably get 6 hours out of most people. But I was trying to figure out, if you enforce the two-speech rule, and you just kept the session and they kept the Senate in session 24/7 and allowed each senator only 2 speeches, how long would that run? And if everybody spoke about 6 hours, you'd be talking about 3 weeks of time. If everybody spoke twice as long, well then you'd be talking about 6
Night's not going to be able to do 15 hours.
No, well, it's a good test for people like Jeff Merkley and a few other senators could probably go that long. But it won't be necessary because they're going to nuke the thing instead.
Yeah. Which, we have argued for years.
Yeah.
They're doing it.
Comfortable with it.
In the long run, this is what has to happen to make the Senate a more democratic institution. What really needs to happen is more accurate popular representation of the population in the Senate. Somebody pointed out yesterday that 53% of the people of the United States are represented by, it was then, the 42 senators who said they were going to filibuster. So the majority of the people are represented by the minority of the Senate.
Yes. Well, that's been the case a lot lately, and even more so in the
forever,
House,
because that's the way the Senate is structured.
Oh, yes, that's true. Although I don't know if we measured it every time exactly the same way, but certainly that's the same. That's the structure of the Senate, and it's something we've noticed a lot in the House, the way the districts are drawn there. That just the generic ballot results. 55% of voters voted for a Democrat for Senate or the House, and yet you have distinct minorities handed to you instead.
Mm-hmm.
So it does happen. Man, I don't know. What else might we jam in here before they call you back to? Well, I guess is today a busy day of Senate watching, or are your eyes elsewhere because we're just waiting for this?
Well, it's going to be Gorsuch Trump care,
okay.
As it's been. And maybe having to toss in a little bit, oh, hey, by the way, we're out of government funding on April 29th.
Just as a reminder.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I really don't know how they're going to deal with that.
And that's another thing. How did they think that they could possibly put Trump care on the floor of the House this week with that pending?
I don't know.
And here's the other part that I've been thinking about in terms of the Senate. If they're going nuclear on Gorsuch, they are going nuclear on Gorsuch. Republicans are not particularly comfortable with that. For Trump, who is now polling at 34% approval.
Yes.
Are they going to do this really, really bad healthcare bill? Are they going to overrule the parliamentarian? Or are they going to bust the filibuster? For a really bad, unpopular healthcare bill for a really bad, unpopular president? I don't think so.
Well, I hope not. I don't know if they get exactly how bad it really is, but I don't know. This recess is your last chance to tell them, and they're going to do everything that they can to avoid being told.
Yes, they are. You're going to have to hunt them down.
Yeah. Find them and...
in a completely nonviolent, non-threatening way.
Yes. So maybe we'll say, you'll have to seek them out rather than
That's
hunt
a better
them down.
way of saying it.
Seek
Yes.
them out. And let them know. But, yeah, they'll do everything they can to avoid hearing from you, both House and Senate. I liked your story last time about the congressman who just checked into a hotel.
Yeah.
That's
Simpson.
a pretty good reason.
Profile and courage here in Idaho.
Probably billed us for the room service, too.
Oh, undoubtedly.
Well, all right. So we'll keep an eye on these things that are.
We'll keep
so
an eye on
terrible.
those things. Mark is as always following Russia and Syria, mostly Russia, which is so complicated at this point. Thank goodness he's there to do it.
Yes. How are you? Are you following the or writing on the story, such as it is, Susan Rice angle? Is that who's doing it?
That's been mostly Mark.
Okay, because this one also is a piece of garbage. It would seem.
It is
I should.
It's
ask him
infuriating.
But
But they did find another black woman to make it.
Oh, good. Well, good for them. They have to
A
work hard
villain.
on that. That seems like a non-story, but they're doing a fantastic job on the other side, pretending that it is a story.
Because they got Eli Lake at Bloomberg to write the damn thing.
Yes,
Up until then, it was firmly in the realm of conspiracy theory, crazy fake news.
I'd love to find the timeline on how this happened, how it went down, and I'm seeing people beginning to put that together. But I mean, is it I don't know. I guess if it's not your story, you might not have.
I don't have all the ins and outs.
Oh
no.
well, Mark, come in here. I'm going to arrange for Mark to do this too, one of these days. He's even a time zone ahead of you, I think, so it should be easier for him.
I'll tell him. I'll send him along.
Okay, because
and if I'll put a plug in, if you've got the time to do it, it would be really fun to hear from you on possible procedural moves the Democrats can make to drag this out past Easter.
Yeah. Well, it should be set to writing at some point. So we'll give it a shot. I'm still catching up on so much other work that when I was sent reeling from everything crashing all at once, that I'm way behind on a number of things. But okay,
I
we
understand.
have to think about that one. And
but we have a day.
Okay, that's not a lot. But
we have 24 hours before this is going to happen.
Yeah. Well, it's good advice for other things too, not just for for delaying the nuclear option. It's usable after the nuclear option happens too. It'll take some convincing, as most of these things do. They very often you throw out these proposals and everybody says that's not the way it works, and some days you find out the next day it is the way it works. Sometimes 5 years down the road, that is. Oh my God!
They figure out that it could be the way things work. Yeah.
Or you could make it be the way things work. I'm just watching lots of things like that happening. From time to time, it all comes together. All right. Well,
anything you can do to nudge it along, we appreciate.
We'll give that a shot. As in between other jobs, I guess we'll make that work. Thank you very much, though, for coming in between the jobs that you're doing over at Daily Kos. I know they want you back to get on to the next one.
They do, as always.
Thank you, Joan. And
thank you. We will talk to you next week. And by the way, I feel guilty for not getting a microphone like Greg did, because that sounded great.
Oh, well, all right. Well, we can probably work that out too. We've yet to figure out exactly how that's going to be paid for, but we're going to pay for it one way or the other. It's a valid, capital improvement, I think, for us here out of our capital improvement fund that our friends and contributors have been filling the coffers for. Might even be a Daily Kos expense at this point.
Yeah, I think I could probably call it a Daily Kos expense, since I also do other interviews.
Right,
so.
Absolutely. And you'll sound that much better for all. I'll send you the details of what he bought and the price and a place to buy it and everything. And then,
that would be excellent.
See if they'll spring for it. Why not? Should sound like you're in the room too. Okay, thanks, Joan. We'll
Thank
check in with you again
Talk to you next week.
And hope,
Wait, will we talk next week? You're not on spring break or anything.
My kids are, but Wednesday I'll be around, I believe. Now, you might have to talk to my kids too, but
okay.
That's okay. All right.
All right,
good.
Till then.
Very good. Take care. We'll talk to you next week. Joan McCarter, our senior political writer at Daily Kos, off to do all the senior political writing that needs doing, including the latest parrot news, I'm sure. I hope that's getting the serious coverage it deserves over at Daily Kos. And it might not be a bad thing to check in with Mark Sumner about what's up with the Susan Rice thing, because we need to spend some time talking about that one too. And I'm sure we can get to that a little bit tomorrow. Maybe we can start to break that down. As I told you, I'm going to have to record a program for Friday, and I began work on that yesterday. I'm sure we can get something together, but I might have to do the same for Monday as well, in addition to the following Friday. It's a tough time. There is spring break going on, yes, but that doesn't mean that I want to leave you in the lurch. We're going to record as much as we can because there's just too much happening to take days off, although it is difficult to record a second show right after finishing the first show. But on the other hand, as a team, we work hard to be able to do this over at Netroots Radio, by which I mean that all of the things that I didn't get a chance to treat on today's show are likely topics for the after show coming up next right here on Netroots Radio. And you should stay tuned, listening live to our streaming player that you'll find embedded every morning on the front page at Daily Kos. I'll give you a good look at what's coming up on the show. Thanks to Justice's behind-the-scenes update for me. Coal mining states, much of the news today. Thankfully, I'm sure all out there celebrating the Parrott decision. Coal mining states are misusing funds earmarked for cleaning up coal mines. Why would you want to clean up coal mines? Oh, I don't know. Well, apparently they don't want to, and they're misusing all the funds that had been provided for that purpose. The Department of Justice, not particularly worried about the misuse of all those funds, I guess, is shielding Trump's antitrust nominees' emails from public scrutiny. Well, what about his emails? And April Ryan, Maxine Waters, and Susan Rice, this is breaking news, they're all black women. That's not the news, the other part. It's thus the natural enemies of the Trump administration. Just as Joan mentioned, they found another black woman to pick on in the person of Susan Rice. And they'll be taking a closer look at that on the after show following our program's conclusion. Here for the last half, they'll be visiting with Angela Marks, known to many of you on Twitter as Angie in Washington State, for a discussion on North Korean nukes, the Syrian gas attacks, and Trump's meh response. And there's a lot to it. It's amazing what Rex Tillerson didn't have to say about any of those things. It's just a huge story and a big hole in our coverage, I admit. I'll cop to that one here on Kagro in the morning. Thankfully, it's not without it's not going to go without attention here on Netroots Radio. If you'll just hang on just a minute and listen to the after show coming up next. All of that, of course, plus the Connect, Unite, Act Daily Kos community calendar to bring things local, and more on the after show with Wink and Justice coming up next.
From Daily Kos Radio on netrootsradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
We do thank you for listening, and we thank you for your contributions that make it possible for us to help improve the sound quality of the show with things like a nice new microphone purchase for Greg, and maybe Joan as well. Thanks so much for your Patreon patronage, and also you'll find a way to make one-time donations through Square Cash in our morning posts.